let's see, a couple things. Number one, not much has been done on the tests. I feel very confident that I will have them done before spring break.
Spring break?
Yes. Do you not want them done before spring break?
I would love that.
I mean,
They will be done before spring break.
what about winter break?
I think I need to stick it on there.
Okay, join me, please. Thank you. Makeups by next Friday. For those in here that have makeups, I don't know how many of you that is, but hopefully you know. Letters by the following Friday, just reminders.
Public service announcement. Please go to the challenge. Leadership.
That's not the sales pitch that you Please buy stuff because we need the money. How about please buy stuff because this will be, you'll love it.
You will.
You will.
Go to the talent show. You would be absolutely amazed at the level of talent we have in this school.
There's piano.
No, you. The amount of talent that's in this school is mind-boggling, and I guarantee you, if you go to the talent show tomorrow night,
You won't regret it.
you will see some stuff that you never thought you would see. Okay? You will be impressed by people that you had no idea had that amount of talent. Okay? So, it's only $5. All proceeds go to the theater department and BSU. Splitting. Then why wouldn't you make it $6 so each of you gets?
Yeah.
I just want $2.50.
No,
Anyway,
I mean, because
$4.
when you think about it, if you go if zeros and fives, like you get a zero,
If you get 0, it's easy to split.
No.
a zero, like if you get 100, it's easy to split.
I understand that. So if on your test, if on your partner test yesterday you got a 0, it's easy to split that in half and give half points each person. I understand. No, I got it.
I know.
It's an appealing number.
Sorry, Ella. By the way, I have absolutely no idea who's in the talent show or anything. That was just a sales pitch for that seemed like it would be generic enough. And what? I at no point said anything about the theater needing money. I would assume that everybody could use money. Okay.
Oh, right. It wasn't in the row.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Boys soccer has their first home game tomorrow at.
We don't want to talk about that.
No. Shh. JV's at 4, varsity's at 6. JV's at 4, varsity's at 6. Coming to the varsity game, dress warmly.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have gone to many softball practices recently that start at 6, and at 6 o'clock, it is fairly nice out. And by about 7, it feels like the next coming of the Ice Age.
While we're making announcements, we might as well announce boys basketball next Tuesday.
Friday.
They have time.
Okay, but Tuesday comes first.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you can announce it on a Monday then.
Did you say girls basketball?
Friday.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's enough announcements.
Well, girls basketball doesn't count.
Hold on.
Go back.
Rewind.
Oh, I know. I'm totally kidding. Excuse me. Whoa. No, in fact, here, over the last, 7 years since I've been here, there has been exactly 1 year that the boys have done better than the girls at the end of the season. And that was last year. That was the only time. The girls have made quite a number of runs over the last few years in basketball. So
I'll be sleeping on it.
they never won.
They want state.
Not in the last 7 years.
Oh no, yeah, no.
So I have no idea if they did, but they have not since I've been here. But they've made runs in the last few years. So that's just come on.
I know. I'm not saying
Boys?
Yeah.
Rematch of the state final?
Yeah. That's why they
Interesting.
want us to like announce it.
Gotcha. Now, thank you. You knew where I was going with that. That was last I checked, you're not playing for the boys basketball
No.
team, so, but that makes a lot more sense. Okay, all right. We have 3 weeks from right now, you are done.
Oh man. I can just,
Three.
I'm just
Come on, David, give me some credit. Have a little confidence in me here. 3 weeks from right now, you are done.
I'm just reaching for it.
Well, but, okay. I didn't say this in the other classes, so I'm gonna have to make up for that tomorrow, but that means a couple of things. First of all, for some of you, I sense fear.
Yes.
For others, I sense excitement because they want to be done. Okay. And for others, I sense not apathy.
Depression.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
mood, guys.
But even though there may be differences in your feelings, you're all kind of at the same spot. So what I would recommend is this. As much as you can, take the emotions and toss them out. Because the emotions aren't going to help you get to where you need to go. Okay? Make a plan for the next 3 weeks and follow through on your plan. When you guys plan, and I've seen this for years, and I see it with my kids, and I see it with me, and stuff like that. When you plan, when you say, okay, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to spend this much time on this, I'm going to spend this one, you always have good plans. Okay? But it's the actual putting in motion of the plans. It's the actually sitting down and studying for that hour that you said you were going to, where people don't follow through. And that's what gets you in trouble. So as much as you can, make a plan and stick with it and go with it. Okay? At one point earlier this year, I said when we get close to the end, I'll give you probably a few philosophies in terms of how to study for exams. I got one from a friend of mine who is one of the smartest people I've ever met. He's been in education, he's got a doctorate in education and stuff like that. And he gave us this plan, and I still don't know if anybody has ever followed through on it, and it seems like a ridiculous plan. But in his mind, from his studies, from his research, it works. I don't know. You would have to, and it says this, okay? 15 days, you start to study 15 days before your exam, okay? Which seems probably further out than most of you would study, would be my guess.
Oh, I start 2 weeks before
I started
exams.
with
2 weeks is
14 days.
14 days. So I said 15 days. So you were making it sound like my
Close
number
enough.
made no sense, but you're like off by a day. Anyway, 15 days before your exam, you start to study. And in each class, 15 days before your exam, you study in that class for, ready for this? 1 minute. I'm just telling you what the philosophy is, what the theory is. Not like, okay, I'm going to study for my minute, so as I get my books out and now I've sat down and I have 4 seconds left. But, get your stuff out and study for a minute. Once again, this is the theory. The next day, 2 minutes. This is not a doubling thing, though. This is as you're about to learn, this is an arithmetic sequence rather than a... The next day,
3 minutes.
3 minutes, and the next day 4 minutes, and the next day 5 minutes, etc.
15 minutes in class.
So that the last day before your exam, you would study for 15 minutes. That's good math. Okay.
I don't have 15 minutes in class.
Does that seem like a lot of studying to you?
No.
No, it doesn't seem like a lot of studying to me too, which is why I hesitate a little bit because I've never seen anybody do it. Nobody's ever actually come back and followed through and said, Mr. Hendrickson, I did it and it worked, or I did it and it didn't work. I don't know. But it is an interesting, well, remember one of the things I said earlier this year also. I said, one of the good things about exams now for you guys is that exams are 20% of your grade. Your goal, I would think, during high school is to figure out what's the best way for me to study for exams, right? Between now and when you graduate high school, that's kind of an important question to answer, isn't it? What's the best way for me to study for exams? Because, like we said, when you go to college, it's not going to be worth 20% of your grade anymore, right? I told you about my school, right? The least important exam I took in 4 years of college, least important, was 50% of my grade. I know.
If you just feel it,
The most important was 75%. Most of them were about 50%. But there were some that were 2/3, which would be what percent?
66.
0.6, so like 67%. And there was one I remember was 75%. My point is, the people who go to college and don't have a clue how to study for exams, yeah, are in a lot of trouble when that time comes. Whereas if you take this time between, whatever grade you're in now, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, whatever, but now until you graduate saying, I want to figure out the best way. And I might come up with a way that doesn't work, but that's worth 20% of my grade. It's not going to be that big a deal. I mean, to be honest, what's the most that your grade is going to change on a 20% exam? No, it's closer to 2 points than 2 letters. Probably about 4 or 5 points. Possibly. And that would be an extreme. And for your grades, it's easier for grades to go down than to go up.
Yeah.
Do you know why? There's a lot more space below the grade you have now, unless you have a 50. But nobody here has a 50. But the higher up you get, the less room you have above your grade. With me here? So it's easier for it to go down, but still, for it to go down, let's say 5 points, you'd have to get more than 20 points below what you have right now. A lot more than 20 points below. Probably more like 30 points below. So if you have a B average and you got a 50, still not dropping it more than 4 or 5 points.
Yeah.
Percent, yeah. So, but my point is that as long as you study, you can be a little creative. You can take some chances with how you study to see if something works. And maybe it doesn't, and maybe that's what you find out. But maybe it does. And maybe then you spend next semester, okay, I think I have an idea here. I think this is working. And then next semester you try it again and maybe it works. And now all of a sudden you're going to college and you're going, I know how to study for finals. You know what I'm saying? So use this time to figure out the best way. Maybe this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing is going to be good for you. Maybe you try it and you say, it wasn't a bad idea, but I don't think I can start with 1. I got to start with 5 and go up to 20. Or start with 5 and go up by 2 minutes. And say, well, I have no idea. That's on you guys to figure out. But there are 2 things that I'm saying. Number 1 is try things. And number 2 is obviously study. Because I promise you that not studying for an exam is not the best way to prepare for it. I feel very confident about that one. With me here? So anyway, we are 3 weeks. Your last exam is in here. So 3 weeks from today, hopefully at this point I'll be almost done grading your exams and everything like that. So you got 3 weeks till this exam. So figure out how you want to do it. That's why I said something now. Tomorrow my plan is to give you a review, to give you the first review for the final. Okay? That is my plan. Hopefully I will remember and follow through on that. But anyway, that's the master plan at this point. Okay? Questions in that regard? Yes, ma'am.
How many more tests do we have before the final?
6 more tests before the final.
Sounds good.
What do you think? What would you guess? How many would you guess? 1. You know how you can find out for sure?
Calendar.
Is it a quiz? It says test. But it also says test 10, so obviously that's a typo. It's not on chapter 10. But I'll check it, but I'm pretty sure it is a full test.
Can we just throw a quiz in there?
Which is probably a good thing,
Extra points.
because a quiz is going to do about that for grades.
Bring my grade up much.
Let's see. Anything else? Other questions or comments or concerns or anything? No?
No, I'm just creating
They're trying to study Saturday.
something. Not say study Saturday. I said
Wait. Study on a weekend?
Oh dear.
How many people here do schoolwork on the weekends?
I have to, or else I'd fail my class.
I will tell you this right now. I will tell you this right now. If you walk into a regular classroom, the number of people that would raise their hand there would be less than 10%, for sure. I will also tell you that there are many teachers that will not even give a test on a Monday because they are so sure that their students won't do anything over the weekend. You'll notice that in here, have we had tests on Mondays?
Yeah.
Yeah, have we had tests on Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Thursdays?
Yeah.
Fridays?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. It's whenever it falls.
Saturdays.
I feel very confident that I've not yet given a test on a Saturday. Anyway, all right, shall we? Chapter 12. The last chapter in the book. We have 4 sections left of math this year. That is it.
That is scary.
4 sections, that's it.
Are we identifying comic sections?
No.
Yeah.
That's up there in case somebody walks in and wants to observe me. There's something there.
You probably don't know what kind.
That was the very first thing from last chapter.
That's what I thought.
Ooh, don't erase that part where I said it's only
I
up
don't know how
there.
to do that.
Use that pen. I didn't erase the talent show. I'm saying that. I'm just gonna like fire out the phrase talent show. Like, okay. Today we are going to talk about sequences. Sequences are basically lists of numbers. Okay? They could be created in many different ways. We're going to talk about a few different things, and then later on in the chapter we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about some of them. But today's a general idea into the beginning, what a sequence is, and some things like that. I'm going to tell you that in this chapter, terminology is important. The way you say things is important, very important. Precision, number 6, is very important here also. Okay, so be aware that if you start to say things, I might shut you down or adjust you because I want to make sure we get things right, that we're saying things correctly. Okay. All right, so here's our first one that we're going to see. Okay. Can you read this for me?
A sub n equals 4n minus 7.
A sub n, not an or anything like that. A sub n, very important there. A represents a term in the sequence. A represents a term in the sequence. N represents which term in the sequence. So if we were going to say, if we were asking about A sub 5, what would A sub 5 represent? The 5th term in the sequence. And A sub 7 would represent the 7th term in the sequence. So where do you think we would usually start here? A sub 1. Why A sub 1?
Because it's the first term.
Because that would be the first term. And let's start with the first term. Okay? So if we're going to find A sub 1, then n is 1. So when we come over here, it says 4n minus 7. How are we going to write that?
4 times 1 minus 7.
4 times 1 minus 7, which gives us. So the first term of this sequence is negative 3. Reasonable? What kinds of numbers do you think we're going to use for n?
Positive.
Positive numbers. What? Somebody said
Real
something.
numbers?
Certainly real numbers. Integers? Positive integers. You're not a big fan of the negative 8th term of a sequence? Does that make any sense?
No.
No. What about the 1.5th term of a sequence? Doesn't make any sense, right? So the only numbers that we're going to use for n are going to be what kinds of numbers? Whole numbers.
Rational?
The only the only bad thing about whole numbers is what number is a whole number that we won't use? 0. Yeah. So what am I hearing? Are you hearing that? That's what I'm hearing. I'm like,
Let me turn.
okay. Oh, you're getting a phone call? Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Just like anyway, I'm sorry. We won't be counting numbers is the phrase that we might use. Also known as what's another? Do you know another phrase for counting numbers? Rational mean 2/9 is rational. Positive integers. How about something that starts with an N? I believe. What kind of numbers? Natural numbers. Good. Natural numbers, right? Do you remember that? Natural numbers is the same as counting numbers. What's the first counting number? 1. Why? Because that's what you use to start counting. Yeah. So anyway, okay. Can you find the first 5 terms of this sequence?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, do it. The first 5 terms of this sequence. That's a good picture of Lizzie, right?
Oh, yeah.
What's that from?
That was from when we were in New York City. That was how she dressed for the award ceremony.
11.
She's
11.
9, isn't she 9?
Seriously, 11?
I don't know.
She's only 9. Oh, that wasn't what you were talking about. A sub 2
Up by 4.
equals 4 times 2
Minus 7.
minus 7, which gives us
1.
1. What's the third number? 5 is correct. What's the fourth number? 9 is correct. The fifth number?
13.
13. That's good. Those are the first 5 terms of this sequence.
Plus 4.
What do you do to get from term to term in this sequence?
Plus
Add
4.
4. Is there anything interesting about that? Having the,
Slope is 4.
yeah, I'm not gonna use the word slope, but
The constant.
The what?
the
Okay.
Coefficient?
coefficient. Like coefficient there?
Yeah.
I do too. The coefficient of n
It's 4.
is actually what it goes up by every time. And we're going to spend a lot more time on that starting on Monday.
That's not what you said.
What? Wow, you just called her out right in front of everybody.
And
I said the number in the equation is 4.
then I was
Like
There's a
as
couple
in
of
the
numbers in the
coefficient.
equations.
And she was like, no.
I did not say that's not what you said.
When you add or subtract, because isn't subtracting the same as adding a negative number? Yeah. So anytime you add the same number to get from one term to the next, that's called an arithmetic sequence. I know it's spelled the same as arithmetic, but it's pronounced arithmetic. Just is. We'll spend a lot more time on that starting on Monday. Okay? But arithmetic.
No, the definition, like.
When you add the same number every time to get from one term to the next. Okay. Yes, arithmetic. All right? If we wanted to find the first term, what would we write?
1.
Tell me what to write. A sub 1. I strongly suggest writing the A sub 1 for a couple of reasons, and you'll start to see that more and more as we continue moving on. A sub 1 equals 3 to the first minus 5, which gives us negative 2. So negative 2 would be our first term. Get the first 4, please. First 4 terms. Oh, come on. No. Ready? No. Watch this. Are you listening? Okay. You want to do the 4th power, right? Easiest way to do the 4th power. Square it.
Right. I went
Square it.
27 times.
No. Square it.
Okay.
So what'd you get?
9.
Square that. With me?
Yeah.
Better?
Kind of.
Well, that works for 4th power of anything. Square it and square it. Just like the 4th root of anything is square root. Second term. 4. Third term. 22. 4th term. 76. Is that an arithmetic sequence? No. Why not?
Because you didn't add anything.
You is not adding the same thing every time, that is for sure. Okay. Questions there?
No.
We will also, in this section, go the other way. We will take a sequence and we'll try to come up with the expression for it, the rule for it.
Plus 3s.
Wow. That stressed some people out.
You're right.
But I don't know the
It's
Would be
the I don't care at this point sequence.
Something 3N.
3N something.
Does not have anything. That's why I call it I don't care.
Oh, 3N minus.
It's similar to a sequence that we'll come up with, but that's not till middle of next week, and it doesn't work for that. So this is nothing.
Minus 4, -1, -1.
All right. How do we get from one term to the next?
Add 3.
We had 3, correct? Everybody okay there? So, what do I write?
A sub n.
A sub n equals
3n minus 1.
3n. So we write 3n because that's what we said earlier, right? We said if we go up by the same amount every time, then that becomes the coefficient of the n. Fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wait, no, minus.
Is this our answer?
No.
Plus 2.
Why not? Because it doesn't work, right? Because according to this, what should the first term be?
4.
It should be 3,
Oh, yeah.
right? 3 times 1? 3 times 1 is 3? Sure?
Plus 1.
Plus
Okay.
1.
But it's not 3, it's 4.
Plus 1.
So how do we get from 3 to 4?
Plus 1.
Add 1. Now, does that work for the first term?
Yes.
Yes. I would always check another term. And I would usually not check the second term. I might check like the 4th term or something like that. So, does it work for the 4th term? Because it would be 3 times 4, which is 12. Plus 1 is 13. And so, because of that, this is a perfect answer. Okay? Let's get more difficult.
Oh.
Oh, the other one.
Oh my god. Okay.
I did?
When did he ever say no fractions ever? Who loves fractions?
What has to be a whole
N
number?
has to be a whole number.
N has to be a whole number. You'll notice that we are not writing the 2nd and a half term.
I think you can take this one.
Wow. You told me to shut up.
The bottom you just multiply by 2 and the top
You told me to shut up. Oh, well, that's okay. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. All right. When? Okay. I cannot need to every second sentence quiet you guys down. So stop talking in your groups, which is very rare for me to say. Stop talking in your groups. Stay up here, please. When we have terms that are fractions, the vast majority of the time, we will probably want to do the top and the bottom separately, especially when we're not just adding the same fraction every time, okay? And we're not here. We're not adding the same fraction every time. What would we add to get from this term to this term?
2.
No.
Oh.
1/2 to 3/4.
Oh, 1.
To get from 1/2 to 3/4, what would we have to add? 1/4. If we were to add 1/4 to this, what would we get?
1.
We'd get 1, and we don't have 1, so it's not arithmetic. Once it's not arithmetic, I'd probably think of things totally separate, the top and the bottom. So let's look at the numerator. So what should I write first? A sub n equals, and I'll just separate the top and the bottom. So tell me about the top.
You multiply everything by 3.
We're multiplying by 3 every time?
Yes.
Okay, I would agree. If we are multiplying by the same thing every time, if we are adding the same thing every time, that number becomes the coefficient of n. If we are multiplying the same thing every time, that number becomes the base of n. So it becomes kind of an exponential thing. Fair? Okay. Does this work? No. Why not? Because according to this, what should the first term be?
1.
According to this, what should the
3.
first term be? 3. Because it should be 3, to the first, and 3 to the first is 3. Is our first term 3? No, our second term's 3. So, what should, according to this, what should our second term be?
-2.
According to this, what should our second term be?
9.
9. Just got to listen to me when I ask the questions. I'm always trying to get somewhere. One more time. According to this, what should the second term be? 9. It's not. It's the third term. Wait a minute. So what we wanted, what was the first term according to this, is the second term there, and the second term. Huh. I mean, we just want to back everything up a term, right?
Right.
Because according to this, we're going to go 3, 9, 27, right? Well, there's 3, 9, 27. They're all there. They're just off by a term. So we can back it up a term just by going like that. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
A lot of these are just going to be, guess and check isn't the right way to say it, but you know, the more you do, the easier it's going to get. Right? Does this work now?
Yeah.
Okay, according to this, what should the first term be? 1, because it should be 3 to the,
So 0 verse -1 is 0.
so the first term, according to this, the first term should be 3 to the
First
0.
Zero.
And what is 3 to 0?
1.
1, which is right there. And what should the second term be? According to this. 3 to the
First power.
first, which is
3.
3. So it does work. Yes? All right, let's talk about the bottom.
Times 2.
No, that isn't.
No.
You said it is 0, so that's.
No, n's never 0.
And why do you say it is 0?
And was
Because
1.
if we were trying to find the first term, then we're trying to find a sub 1, which means that n is 1. So for the first term, we have 3 to the 1 minus 1, so 3 to the 0 power.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Bottom.
2n. 2 to the power.
Careful. What are we doing to get from term to term? Multiplying by 2. So therefore,
2 to the power
2
n.
to the n.
No, wait. Okay, yeah, my bad.
Everybody always wants me to wait. Wait. Does, according to this, what should the first term be?
2.
2. Is it?
Yes.
Ooh. What should the third term be?
8.
8. We're done.
Yahoo.
The more you do, the better you get.
The more you know.
They're not. This one would be, but we're going to talk about that next week. So for right now, I just want you to be able to find them. And you're going to have some that will be arithmetic, some that won't be, some that will be really weird. But for today, we don't care what they're called. All right. Questions so far? No? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Say that.
Exclamation. 5!
And that's the way we have to say. No, I'm just kidding. This is called
My head hurt, my gosh.
5 factorial. That is an exclamation point. And that, in this case, is a mathematical symbol, which stands for factorial. Now,
I mean, I have a question.
factorial is a lot easier than you might guess. You're figuring a new symbol that's going to be complicated, but it's really not. 5 factorial means 5 times 4, and then you just keep multiplying by each number all the way down until you get to 1. So 5 factorial is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And 3 factorial would be
3 times 2 times
2
1.
times 1, which would be 6. So 3 factorial is 6. Okay. Can you do 4 factorial? How would you do 4 factorial?
24 3 times
4
2
times 3 times 2 times 1. What is 4 times 3 times 2 times 1?
24.
24 is correct. So you now know that 4 factorial is 24. How would you do 5 factorial then?
Times 5. 24 times 5. 120.
Would you do 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1? Well, you
Yeah.
can.
I was right.
Or you could be lazy like me
Just multiply that.
and say that 5 factorial is equal to 5
Times 24.
times
24.
4 factorial. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Will that work every time?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we say that 10 factorial is 10 times
9 factorial.
9 factorial? Can we say that? Absolutely. Okay. So as we start to do factorials, that might be helpful. Now we're going to use these a fair amount in the near future. One of the nice things about it is that we can do them on our calculators.
Oh my God.
Show me where.
Yeah, please. I see a question mark. Exactly. That's what I said the first time. I was like, I have a question mark, but I don't have an exclamation mark.
Okay. So your calculator can do factorials. Here is how. Let's say that we were going to do 9 factorial. Sound okay? So 9. And then we're going to
Oh, I
hit
got it. I found it.
the math button.
Math.
And then we're going to slide over to PRB. And you'll see that number 4 is the exclamation point. So what do you see up there on the screen?
You can't do 120 apparently.
9. Yeah, thank you. You don't see, I see 9! And what is 9? It's 362,880, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Who doesn't know that?
You.
You told me to shut up again.
Please refrain.
So, one of my many faults is that when I was first introduced to factorials when I was in high school, I said, let me do like a really big factorial. See what it looks like.
Oh yeah, it doesn't work.
120 is
Not like by
It
hand,
was error.
but I don't know what, 120 factorial. It sounded like somebody said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I pressed
PRB,
answer
or-
factorial.
You already tried
earlier.
this?
Yeah, and it said error overflow.
Whoa, holy cow.
It's
What,
good.
now, notice that Sophia just didn't look at the part that said error. She actually looked at what the error was about, which is good. You should start to do that. If your calculator has an error, look at what's after it. It'll tell you what's wrong. What's wrong here?
Too many numbers.
It's just too stinking big. I'm like, really? We're just multiplying by numbers to 100? I don't know. Anyway, I get curious and I go, well, how high can I do it? Try 70.
It works at 7.
70 factorial. Math,
That's what I'm trying to do.
PRB,
90.
70 factorial. Still an overflow.
Oh, this was I
10
didn't know.
factorial.
Oh, 69. It goes up to 69.
So took me a while to figure out. I tried all kinds of numbers, and eventually I got to the point where I could not find 70 factorial, I could find 69 factorial. Anyway, can we
There's a
do,
whole bunch of space right there,
so what does this mean, by the way?
It's to the 1.7.
Got it. Yeah, the E98 is scientific notation. So times 10 to the 98th power. There's a lot of power.
Did not mind.
So,
Over 90
okay.
times.
By the way, what do you think happens when we do 2.6 factorial?
Error?
Why?
Because it's the decimal. Domain.
Domain. What does domain mean?
The x-axis.
What x is allowed to be. So therefore, what is it telling us? X can't be 2.6. Why not?
It's a decimal. It's not a full number.
Okay, because we can only get factorials of whole numbers. Whole numbers.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Natural.
That's an interesting question. Is it whole numbers or counting numbers?
Natural
Interesting
numbers.
question. Okay, hang on. No. Here we go again. I got 10 minutes and I've got about 15 minutes worth of stuff to do. Okay, so stick with me, please. What's 3 factorial? 6. What's 2 factorial?
2.
2. What would you guess 1 factorial is?
1.
That is true. What would you logically think that 0 factorial is?
0.
That would be the logical thought.
Error.
0
Error don't
factorial.
exist. Wow.
This is a definition. Okay, the 0 factorial is defined as equaling 1. Okay, so interestingly, 0 factorial and 1 factorial are the same. It's a little weird, but just kind of so that you know. So you know 0 factorial, you know 1 factorial, you know how to calculate the other factorials. On your homework, you're going to have some questions that deal with factorials. Okay.
Oh gosh, there they are. Wait, 100.
Okay, so take a look at number 32 for a second. 32 factorial over 30 factorial. I request very strongly that you do not use your calculator for this. I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, I am not in any way, shape, or form asking you to multiply 32 times 31 times 30 times 29 times 29, blah, blah, blah. But watch this. Go back to what we talked about at the beginning. 32 factorial, we can write as 32 times 31,
Oh,
true, but could we keep going? Times 30 factorial? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right? There's no problem there. 30 factorial would just be 30 all the way down to 1. Why might I want to write that as in that way?
Oh, because it cancels out.
Because now we can cancel the 30 factorials. And all of a sudden, our answer becomes 32 times 31, which I have no problem if you do on your calculator, by the way.
Okay, I'm confused where you got the 30.
Well, it's 32 factorial over 30 factorial. Okay? So 32 factorial is 32, you're all gone.
No, I sent Vicky out again.
Vicky has not come back. 32 factorial is 32 times 31 times 30 times 29 times 28 times blah, 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 blah. So are you okay with us writing 32 factorial as 32 times 31 times 30 factorial? Is that legal?
Yes.
We could write it as 32 times 31 times 30 times 29 times 28 times 27 factorial. We can stop wherever we want.
Okay, that's
And is it reasonable that we could? Because what does this mean? What does 30 factorial mean?
I like this.
So this is just saying, it's like shortcutting writing the whole thing out. Better? Cool. Yes, sir. I'm going to get 36. No, I'm just not going to do it on my calculator. I'm going to do 101 times 100 times 99 times 98 factorial, and then we'll cancel the 98 factorials. Does that make sense? Okay. What about number 30? 4 factorial over 6 factorial. Where are we going to start?
The bottom?
On the bottom. Why?
Because then you can cancel it on the top.
Because that's the bigger number. You want to start with the bigger one. So, tell me how I'm going to write this one.
6 times 5 times 4 factorial.
6 times 5 times 4 factorial. And what's on top?
4 factorial.
4 factorial, which means that we can now
Cancel
the 4 factorials.
1/30th.
Now remember, and this is important, because we've done this for years. You guys have done this for years. You cancel something, and you just zap it. But you gotta remember that if you cancel stuff, what's really left over?
1.
1. So when we cancel these 30 factorials, there's a 1 left. Now, 32 times 31 times 1, the 1's irrelevant. And 992 over 1, the 1 is irrelevant. But here, when we cancel these, and we go 1 and 1, this 1 is irrelevant, but this 1 needs to stay, because we have to have something on the top, and that's why that becomes our answer.
1 to the first column.
Okay?
I like this.
Okay. I got one more thing, and I'm not going to get done with this, and that upsets me because I messed it up. Anyway, I talked too much exams, but we can do some more tomorrow. But we're going to talk about something called recursive.
Oh, I remember this word. I just can't remember what it is.
Oh my, please don't. Okay, so here's how recursive formulas are going to work, at least for us to start. I'm going to blank this. I'm going to see how far we can get. So here's the first recursive formula. Christian's freaking out over it, but nobody else should. Okay. The deal is this. As long as we remember how to use the ends, this really is not a big deal at all. And you'll see why. My first question is, does anybody know what the first term is of this sequence?
4.
How do you know that already? Oh, because it just says a sub 1 equals 4. Okay. So the first term's 4. And it's 4 because they told us it's 4. I like it. What should we be finding next?
Second term.
Also known as
2.
a sub 2. Very important. This is where it gets important that you write things correctly. So we're trying to find what?
A sub 2.
A sub 2. Since we're trying to find a sub 2, then that means that n is 2. Okay. Which means that a sub 2 is equal to a sub 2 minus 1 plus 6. And a sub 2 minus 1, what does that mean?
A sub 1.
That just means a sub 1 plus 6.
So 10.
Do we know a sub 1?
Yes.
What is it? 4. Oh, a sub 1 is 4. So 4 plus 6. So what's our second term? 10. You got it.
Oh, so then
What
I
comes
look
next?
for 3 and
A sub 3. Now when we do a sub 3, it's important to remember that n
Equals 3.
is 3. So since n is 3, then a sub 3 is equal to a sub 2, right? Because n is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. So a sub 2 plus 6. Do you know what a sub 2 is?
10.
What's a sub 2?
10.
Oh, so 10 plus 6, which gives us
16.
16. Well, that's not that bad, is it?
You just add 6.
Okay, let's do one more term. A sub 4, right? A sub 4 is going to be equal to A sub 3, which is 16,
Plus 6.
plus 6, which gives us.
22.
You guys made me look. I was like, yeah, I did. Let me ask you this. Okay, first of all, tell me about the sequence.
You add 4.
We're just adding 6
Oh, 6.
every time.
And arithmetic.
Okay, I need my last minute. What does this mean? Yeah, I tend to use this, and instead of saying a sub n minus 1, I'll say the term before it. So in this case, what we're saying is, to find a term, we take the term before it and add 6. Oh. Nah, there was one more that we got to do. So I will tell you that like 43, you can do this stuff.